Rams, their first division game of the year, and it's in a big one. It's on Monday Night Football. Is Week 4 a must-win game? That question is going to be answered right after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the 49ers RedZone podcast. I've got a fantastic guest here with me with Suneil, who actually has a milestone of his own. What I said earlier, it's actually the second division game of the year, not the first. So a little quick slip up, but who cares? But Suneil, let's quickly go through your news before talking about the 49ers. I know you just eclipsed 1,000 subscribers. That means that money going to be coming in soon. You know what I mean? But congrats to you, man. That's a great thing. Definitely great to see.
Absolutely, man. And, you are a big part of my channel growing. We've been working together very regularly. I can't even remember how long it's been, but I can't remember a time when I'm not doing a show with you every single week, man. So it's really been a lot of fun. And I personally reached out to you when I found out, because not only, did the channel grow once we started working together a lot more, but I personally had a lot more fun being able to work regularly with you. So I appreciate it. You're next, my man.
Hey, I'm just hoping I can get there. We'll figure it out when it comes. But yeah, but we're in here. 49ers face off against the Rams Monday Night Football. And before we start off the preview, because Tony here has a question about the elephant in the room. Javon Kinlaw missed his second straight practice today with a knee injury. Are you hearing any good news there? Let's start off with the preview. Let's talk about the injuries. Let's talk about kind of the issues that have happened so far with the 49ers. Obviously, a team that has been known for the issues with injuries that they've faced. This past weekend, we figured out that Azeez Al-Shire has a sprained MCL, I believe. He is out likely for probably over a month. It's going to be a few weeks. The 49ers are not placing him on IR because they don't want to use many IR spots. For those that don't know, I believe that you get 8 IR designations for players that can return in a season. The 49ers have used a good amount so far, right? You talk about the early season IR additions like Curtis Robinson, and so they've used a good amount so far, and so that's why you see some of these players. Last week it was Tyrion Davis-Price and Tyler Kroft. Both have not been placed on IR. This week it's Azeez Al-Shire, and then Trent Williams, the big dog, obviously with an injury, a high ankle sprain, which normally takes about 6 weeks to recover. Let's see if that timeline is pushed up, because it is Trent Williams. But the 49ers are facing their injuries. What are your kind of takeaways from the injury bug though so far that's been going on with the 49ers?
Yeah, and I mean, just to explain, Rohan, to my knowledge, right, the reason why you would put somebody on IR opens up another roster spot so that you could bring somebody up on from the practice squad, or from free agency or whatever. So them keeping guys that are still taking up a roster spot even if they can't play means that the 49ers depth is really going to be tested over the next few weeks. And obviously this isn't new for us. We're used to having a team that is oft injured, and a lot of the starters go down for various reasons. It is interesting because it's a lot of knee injuries, right? A lot of MCLs, a lot of ACLs, a lot of ankle type stuff. So you wonder what's going on with that. But the biggest takeaway, or the biggest thing for me, Rohan, is, this offseason, there was this big debate over whether or not the 49ers went, quote unquote, all in this offseason. And a lot of people were getting at John Lynch in the front office for not taking big swings and bringing in, some high name talent. And I think I personally was against that, in the sense that I liked their thought process of developing their young players through the draft, but also bringing in cheaper pieces to gain depth. because at the end of the day, if you put all this money into this big name player and then all of a sudden they get injured, then what's the point, right? It's more important that even though the 49ers have had so many injuries, there's been a lot of depth behind it, right? Jimmy Ward went down. Well, Gibson and Hufanga have been playing really, really great to the point where we're really not missing Jimmy Ward, right? We've had injuries, to Elijah Mitchell, but Jeff Wilson Jr. stepped up and held pretty much the same average yards per carry, and the rushing attack has been pretty similar even with Elijah Mitchell gone. Trey goes down, Jimmy comes in, we're still able to get a victory there. So luckily, the depth piece has kept this team afloat, and I think that the depth is still there. But we are getting to a point, especially with a guy like Trent Williams. That's the drop off from Trent Williams to the backup behind Trent Williams is a severe drop off. So we don't want to see too many more injuries and really have to test that depth to stay competitive.
Yeah, and I mean, Tony, to answer your question, you asked about Javon Kinlaw. Are you hearing any good news there? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Obviously, you had the knee injury, and remember, the 49ers play on Monday night, so the deadline is kind of shifted one day forward now, right? So today is Friday's practice. Normally, when players don't practice on Thursday or Friday, it's pretty clear that they're not going to play in the game. But they play on Monday. So if there is any prognosis, any improvement in Javon Kinlaw's recovery from the knee injury that he sustained, then we hope to see a limited practice tomorrow, or we hope to see something more tomorrow, working on the side, limited practice, whatever it may be. We haven't seen that yet. So right now, my anticipation is it's not looking great for Javon Kinlaw right now. On the other hand, Arik Armstead did work on the side today. He did not practice, but worked on the side. That is a good sign for Javon Kinlaw. That's a good sign for Arik Armstead, because Arik Armstead obviously didn't miss last week with plantar. I don't know how to say it. Plantar fascia, plantar fasciitis.
Mm-hmm.
And plantar fasciitis is something that is going to likely bug him for a majority of the season. It's not something that you recover from immediately, and it's a foot issue as well, where Arik Armstead obviously takes a good amount of his power from. So it's concerning for sure. The 49ers might be without both of their top defensive tackles this week, which means Kevin Givens will likely play a good amount. Hassan Ridgeway will likely play a good amount, but we'll see. The remainder of the injuries, I don't think the only new one that I've seen is Danny Gray with a hip injury. I didn't know that he was injured, and now he did not play today either. Everybody else, though, is not expected to play this week. And Trent Williams, Tyrion Davis-Price, Alshire, and Tyler Kroft, all of them have multi-week injuries. So to me, I don't think that I don't think that the 49ers are going to necessarily be happy with what is going to happen, because I think Javon Kinlaw likely doesn't play. Hopefully Arik Armstead plays, but it's another probably game time decision. He'll probably go through another workout. But hearing any good news, hate to break it, doesn't seem like it right now. Everybody else, though, for tuning in, thank you guys so much. We see 49er Media, No Border Sports, Bubbly Doge, Sacktown Izzy here, and obviously Fernando. Thank you guys all for tuning in so far. And let's get into it a little more. Let's start talking about the takeaways, right, for both teams. Because in a way, while the 49ers are 1-2, many anticipated them to win the division this year, right? So that's kind of like your takeaway. What do you think the 49ers need to do to win this game? And then we'll talk about the subsequent side. What do the Rams need to do to win this game as well?
So for me, Rohan, and it's been something I've been harping on for the last 2 years, and it's really the consistency in the offense being able to score, particularly in the first half of games. And the reason why I say that is because this defense is even better, it looks like, than last year. And the element that this defense is bringing that last year's defense didn't have is the ability to take away the ball. They're averaging an interception every single game. We have two lockdown corners in Mooney Ward and Emmanuel Mosley that are playing extremely well. Whomever lines up at the nickel, whether it was Womack or whether it was Lenore, are doing a great job getting in there and helping out with the run. And I think overall this defense is ranked second in the league, and they're averaging giving up like 9.3 points per game. If this defense is playing with a lead, I don't know if there's too many teams that are going to be able to score on this defense, right? Because if you end up now making offenses one dimensional where they have to play catch up and pass the ball, that's the strength of this defense now. The pass rush and the secondary are now strengths. So for me, the biggest key for the 49ers is a few things. One, make sure you win the turnover game so that it's at least at zero. So you're not negative behind turnovers. And two, this offense has to be able to score. I put it at like if they scored 2 touchdowns in the first half, Rohan, I think this is a dub for the 49ers. If they don't, it's going to be up in the air because we're seeing that this team hasn't had the ability to win close games quite yet. And that's been an Achilles heel even last year, where most of their losses were one score losses, right? Which is similar trend to what we're seeing this year.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about it, it's really up to execution now. Because to score, you're going to need the offense to execute. And this is both on Kyle Shanahan and the offense in general. Create a game flow that will obviously get the 49ers in favorable game position. And another thing is time of possession, right? Last year, the 49ers, the reason that they dominated those games was because of time of possession. They won 31-10, and obviously in week 10, a great matchup in week 18, 27-24 win. And they won time of possession in both games. So that might be another factor. Looking at the kind of like the little details, special teams. It's been a very overlooked facet of the 49ers this year just because the 49ers obviously have had struggles offensively. You look at offense, it struggled. You look at defense, it's great. So nobody necessarily focuses on special teams because you're too busy harping on one side or the other side. But the 49ers have an average special team unit according to DVOA, ranking 16th in special teams DVOA. The Rams, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're 31st in DVOA when it comes to special teams. So that's going to be a battle that the 49ers are looking to win, meaning they got to get better field position. They, especially their punt return unit, they've got to be consistent there, get better field position so that the offense can start in a roll, doesn't have to start with a limited offense. And then also place the Rams in poor field position to get your defense off the field earlier and obviously helping you dominate time of possession.
Absolutely. And I mean, uh, more like obviously special teams plays a big role in field position, but and I don't know if we're going into the other side. I mean, obviously takeaways is a big deal too. Matthew Stafford is averaging close to 2 interceptions per game within the first three games so far. If the 49ers can keep that trend going and intercept a couple of balls from Matthew Stafford, set up Jimmy G in the offense for better field position or put them in easier scoring position immediately, that's going to be a big deal, a big key for the 49ers to get the victory out of this week. Or on the flip side, if Stafford could keep a clean sheet like he did last week against Arizona, that's going to make them pretty difficult to beat as well.
Right. And I mean, also when you talk about time of possession, because we're on the topic, the Rams haven't been very good at dominating time of possession so far. Yes, they're 2-1, but they've actually given up, or they've been under 50% overall this season in time of possession, which ranks 25th in the NFL. So when you look at it, the factors are there for the 49ers if they want to implement 49er football, right? If they want to dominate, if they want to create turnovers, help their defense get off the field. And I think the turnover part's huge because Matthew Stafford's thrown 5 interceptions. And also it's the ability to make fumbles. Can you create something? Can you create that play? That's the reason the 49ers invested in this defense with several players like a Mooney Ward, who already has an interception on the year, like Talanoa Hufanga, who's been one of the better players. You have Talanoa Hufanga, Sean Gibson, Manuel Mosley, Mooney Ward. It's a pretty solid quartet over there with the 49ers secondary. You're hoping now that some magic can happen. And you have one of the best guys manning the middle in Fred Warner.
Absolutely. I mean, and overall, but this game is going to mean a lot to both of these teams, and they're going to try to bring their best foot forward. So it's going to be an intense game, and the team you mentioned in the beginning, the team that executes the best, because at this point, especially with Jimmy as quarterback, there's no secrets, right? The Rams know this offense in and out. 49ers know this offense in and out. They know, Sean McVay, and Sean McVay knows Shanahan and their schemes. So it's really about who's going to execute better, because I don't think either of these teams are going in not knowing what to expect from the other team.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's a good point, which is why you need to take what you get pretty much.
Hmm.
Stephen McGinnis here says, honestly, the Rams got us figured out with Jimmy and our offensive playbook and predictable plays. I hope Kyle's drawing them up with creativity. And you're right. Both teams in a way have each other figured out. They understand the playbook. They understand the other side, given that they've played against each other the amount that they've played over the last couple of years, especially with the Rams understanding Jimmy Garoppolo. But like I said, you got to take what's given to you. The Rams defensively, it's been up and down. When you look at their yards per rush, yeah, that's a good marker, right? They've only allowed 3.8 yards per carry
Hmm.
this season so far. The 49ers have averaged 4.5 yards per carry. So that will be an intriguing battle. Which side will win that? The Rams obviously now without key players from last year. Von Miller obviously gone. I think, ooh, they're starting D tackle from last year, Sebastian Joseph Day. He's also gone. You have a couple of new pieces in there. Bobby Brown, I believe, Greg Gaines, in with Aaron Donald. How can they stop it? And the biggest part, I think, something we saw struggle significantly last week, third down conversions. The 49ers were 1 for 10 on third down conversions. Well, they have a favorable matchup this week, because the Rams are 26th in the NFL, allowing third down conversions 47.3% of the time. That is nearly 50%. The Rams need to make sure those third down conversions are happening pretty much, because the 49ers need to make sure those third down conversions are happening so that they can prolong, so that they can move forward. Their defense is holding steady for them, but their offense needs to capitalize on those opportunities, especially given that the numbers do favor them.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, one way to increase your ability to have a better percentage on third down is be in better positions on third down, right? We need more third and shorts versus third and longs. So take pressure off of Jimmy, and give the ability for that it's like third and manageable, where it's like 4 yards and under, right? That's going to be a lot more important, and that obviously starts with the run game, right, Rohan? Because we know majority of the time first and second down are going to be rundowns for the 49ers, especially with Trent out now, right? Hopefully they start Colton McKivitz and not uh, man, I keep forgetting his name. But it's going to
Jalen
be
Moore?
Jalen Moore, exactly. Hopefully they go with Colton McKivitz, which I think they will.
Yeah.
But having Kittle in there now, I wonder how much he's going to be, active in the run game, because if they could keep averaging 4.5 plus yards per carry, I think last game, Jeff Wilson Jr. actually averaged closer to 4.7 yards per carry.
Right.
If they're able to do that and continuously do that, it's going to put them in very good position. That is third and short. And I think that's going to be extremely important, because even though you're right, this defense is a little bit inconsistent for the Rams. They're not as good as previous defenses, but they still have Jalen Ramsey back there. And Jalen Ramsey is a ball hawk. And if we get into a position where Jimmy has to throw the ball a lot, especially on third down, where it's like he's definitely going to throw the ball, that puts you in a situation where Jimmy can throw. We've seen him throw interceptions, especially when everybody knows he's going to throw. So they have to be able to really utilize the run efficiently to open up the passing lanes for Jimmy, so that we can make it as easy as possible for him in the passing game.
Yeah. And really, I think you nailed it, right? Make it easy as possible for Garoppolo. This game, I mean, a good portion of it will be, how does Garoppolo play, right? Expectations are that he will bounce back from what may have been his worst performance as a 49er last week. But overall, I think Garoppolo is the infrastructure is there for him to bounce back. You look at the Rams linebackers, right? I don't think there's significant enough of an addition in the passing game that really changes the system and the formula from last year, right? where the 49ers did operate over the middle of the field, found success in between the safeties and in between the defensive line and that second level of defense facing off against those linebackers. And we even saw this past week how Kyle Shanahan was able to utilize his skill position players in positions to where they were guarded by safeties or linebackers, right? We saw Deebo Samuel against a linebacker, or sorry, against an edge rusher and Bradley Chubb on one play. We saw Brandon Ayuk lined up against Josie Jewell. The 49ers absolutely tried to take advantage of Josie Jewell in in pass coverage. It's just the execution wasn't there. We'll see if that can be the similar case and if execution does happen this week as well. And to finish off this segment of takeaways kind of for the 49ers to win, the final part, I know you're going to harp on it soon, penalties. The 49ers have been one of the more penalized teams in the NFL thus far. They, I believe, are 23rd in the NFL, averaging 6.7 penalties a game. Meanwhile, the Rams have been one of the most disciplined teams in the NFL, fourth, averaging just 4.3 penalties a game. There's a significant disparity there. The 49ers clearly have been the less disciplined team thus far. Can they change that, though, this Monday night? Can they continue their recent trend, stop the penalties, and really play disciplined football for them to have a chance against the Rams here?
Yeah, and that's key. That goes back to the whole making sure you play as clean. Because here's the thing: we all harp on Jimmy, and obviously he's the starting quarterback, and he's good enough for this team to be able to win with. We've seen it, right? All the success that the 49ers have had under Kyle Shanahan has been with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. However, the thing about Jimmy Garoppolo is it does minimize your window of error. And what I mean by that is you have to play a pretty clean style of football to be able to win. And that's going to be not turning over the ball and the part that you just mentioned, not with the silly penalties, right? And obviously I think those numbers are skewed because of how bad week one was, right? That was where a majority of the penalties were. I think they cleaned it up in the last few games, even though, there were some costly penalties, obviously last week against Denver. But yeah, they have to play discipline. They can't extend drives for the Rams offense, and they can't put Jimmy or put the offense into first and long, second and long, third and long, because once again,
Correct.
we're playing. You can't. It's already hard enough with Jimmy at quarterback. You don't want to make it an uphill battle as well, where we need Jimmy to play lights out for this team to win, because that's a very inconsistent way of victory.
And the big thing, you talk about those first and second and longs, you don't want to make it a situation in where you are predictable. First and long, you're going to be forced to maybe pass the ball as opposed to have a run pass option available. Second and long, again, the 49ers have been efficient in running the football, but are they comfortable running it on second and 12, knowing that they might likely have third and 9, third and 10 kind of situations, which obviously is a tough situation because what do opposing teams got to do? Blitz, force them to get a quick game going and get it short of the 6 for a punt. So I think it is it is definitely an intriguing case because the offensive line play now all of a sudden without Trent Williams, you have now a new left tackle working with a new interior and Mike McGlinchey on the right side, right? So it definitely, there are certain places to be cautious, but also 49ers offensive line, if they can remain disciplined, I think all the pieces do start to fall in place.
And this is a big test for them because obviously the Rams defensive line is looking at this offensive line like it's food, right? It's it's all new guys that they're going up against, with the exception of McGlinchey, obviously. But silver lining is last year, week 18, a must-win game for the 49ers to be able to make it into the playoffs. If you remember who the tackles were, it was Colton McKivitz and Tom Compton. So you would think that the right tackle is an upgrade with McGlinchey, and Colton McKivitz is Colton McKivitz. This is going to be important to see because I feel like Aaron Banks has played pretty consistent over the 3 games. Burford over the first 2 games was playing really well. His last game wasn't very good, right? So to see how he bounces back, especially because more than likely the guy opposite him is going to be Aaron Donald. that is going to be an interesting matchup to see how Burford's physicality against obviously one of the game's best players of all time, how he stands up to that, because he struggled last week. So it's going to be interesting. I did see that that Brunskill was starting to practice again. So I wonder what that means, and if Kyle Shanahan sticks with Burford or if he throws Brunskill in there, because for some reason Brunskill is the Aaron Donald stopper.
Oh, you're saying at right guard, not at center.
I'm talking about right guard, yeah.
Got it. Obviously, I don't think that happens personally, at least at right guard, but it would be funny, you know. Hey, Daniel, just go out there for one play, just to rattle Aaron Donald, get him in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse just real quick, and then we'll sub in Spencer again. That'd be funny. But talking about the offensive line, tough matchup against Aaron Donald and company. It's definitely good the 49ers don't have to go against Von Miller, who's been tearing it up in Buffalo this year. But moving forward in a way, from kind of like the 49ers keys to win offensively, let's look at the defense and the matchup, because the biggest matchup that haunted the 49ers last year, at least in the NFC Championship game, was Cooper Kupp in the slot. Yeah.
Yep.
So what do you think the 49ers should do in a way to maintain Cooper Kupp in the slot and kind of take that part away? Not take it away, because you can't take away one of the top receivers, but how do you think they should combat that issue this year?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because this team has the addition of Mooney Ward there, where maybe you could put Mosley and Ward kind of on an island by themselves with whoever the outside wide receivers are, and then utilize a combination of whether it's Lenore and whatever linebacker is there to basically swarm Cooper Kupp, right? Because he's going to get his catches. He's going to, he's going to find the pockets and all that kind of stuff. He's just too elite at that. But if they could keep it to where he can't get those yards after the catch, I think that's going to be what's key, because at the end of the day, that's really what brutalized the 49ers. It's not just him getting the catches, but him getting the catches in space where they weren't able to tackle him right away. So I think that's going to be the real key is, last season they didn't have the lockdown corners on the outside, so they had to play zone, and Cooper Kupp just demolishes a zone. But
correct.
If you can just play zone on Cooper, but everybody else is man, I think that might help out a little bit more, and just keep him in front of you, tackle him right away so that, he doesn't get the yards after the catch, which I think is what hurts the 49ers.
Right. And one big issue, not necessarily issue, but one big takeaway as well. 49ers do not have Jimmy Ward in this game. He was kind of their blanketer with Cooper Kupp last year. I understand Cooper Kupp got the better of Jimmy Ward at certain times, but Jimmy Ward was that guy that could neutralize that threat out of the slot. He obviously will not play this week. Will come off IR, or at least can come off IR as soon as the after this week is over. We'll see if he practices next week or not. But Jimmy Ward, Jimmy Ward. Obviously, at slot corner, we've had Samuel Womack for the first couple of weeks. Deommodore Lenoir started in his place, appears to be taking over that starting role given his ability and run fits. But two young corners there in the slot in a place where Cooper Kupp normally likes to operate out of. Would you consider potentially having one guy shadow Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if that helps. I mean, Cooper is just too good,
given
right?
his one-on-one abilities.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps. I think at the end of the day, you just have to accept that the style, because it's not. I'm not saying that he's better than Mosley and Ward. I'm just saying that the style of the routes that he runs, it's really hard to play man on, because they're putting him in motion, they're putting him in situations, they're rubbing off of defenders, they're putting him in pick type situations. You have to bracket him like CJ said, and you have to just keep him in front of you. And when he gets the ball, you just tackle him, because we just can't let him get yards after the catch. That's like the key, right? He's gonna get 7 to 10 catches, but I want to keep that like under 100 yards, right? 7 to 10 catches, 60 yards. I think they're doing really good if that's the case, right?
Right. And I mean, even if Cooper Cup goes off, the 49ers defense has shown that they can give up a good amount of yards to a receiver and still be in complete control of that game. Look back to week 2. I believe Tyler Lockett had over 100 yards in that game, but Geno Smith threw for under 200 yards or just about 200 yards. And then in week 3, uh, Cortland Sutton had 97 yards on the game, 8 catches for 97 yards. Russell Wilson threw for under 200 yards, about 180 yards in that game. And so 49ers have shown that even if one receiver can get something going, they've only given up 7 points in the Seahawks game. Or sorry, the team gave up 7 points in the Seahawks game. The defense gave up 0. And in this
Right.
past game, the team only gave up, 9 points on defense? Pretty
Yep.
solid performance to me, even though 2 receivers have had a good game.
And if the 49ers end up putting the Rams into passing situations, that obviously bodes well for them, because one area that the Rams definitely got worse at is their offensive line. And we obviously have a really good defensive line. So, Whitworth isn't there anymore. So who's gonna be that guy on their offensive line that goes up against Bosa, right? What is their game plan against Bosa? And whoever, whether it's Amenahu, whether it's Ebicom, whether it's Jackson, like the opposite guy of Nick Bosa is going to have a big opportunity to be able to have a big game as well. Because overall, the Rams, like I said, their offensive line isn't great. We already know. That Stafford is struggling with interceptions. So this is a real, like, we kind of, even though that's the Rams' strength is their passing game, that's also our strength as a defense. So you kind of want to see that matchup where we're putting them in there, because now we have corners that can intercept the ball. Now we have a safety that's a ball hawk in Hufunga, and we have guys that we know can go out there and get multiple sacks a game, and Bosa and Cruz. So it is going to be interesting, because obviously their strength is our strength on defense. So who ends up winning that battle?
Yeah, I think that is a good, a good argument to make, and potentially one of the keys for the Rams in this game as well. But that battle is obviously there. Another battle that could be happening: the running backs versus the Rams defense. The Rams defense, like we said, 3.8 yards per carry. But my guy Steven said we got some news in the running back room, not necessarily with the players, but Coach Bobby Turner back in the building. First day back today. Had surgery in the offseason. That's the only reason really that he stepped down despite being 73 years old. He's back in the building. Not necessarily for this game, but in general, what do you think about the move? Or at least not necessarily the move, but like at least that Bobby Turner's presence is back in the building.
Obviously, Bobby Turner is a legend. A lot of the success that the 49ers have had drafting running backs late in the draft comes from Bobby Turner's ability to scout that position and just know what works for the scheme that Kyle Shanahan likes to run. I'm sure it's a huge boost. He's a well-loved coach in that locker room. And, obviously the reason why he left the team was for some personal health situations. So the fact that he's back there, I think, is going to be a good lift for a lot of the vets on the team. I don't know what kind of immediate impact it's going to have on the actual players, because unfortunately, a lot of the players that are involved in the running game for the 49ers are really new. So I don't know how much of a relationship they actually have with Bobby Turner,
With
right?
Bobby
So
Turner, yeah.
yeah, including, not just the running backs, but also, guys on the offensive line. Like, how much does Spencer Burford really know about Bobby Turner? How much does Brendel actually had worked with Bobby Turner, being, mostly a backup on the practice squad and all that kind of stuff? I don't know how much Aaron Banks got. So it is going to be interesting to see that. I think as a fan base, as an overall team, obviously it's a really great sign to see him back in the mix. So I think there's going to be like a lift. It's going to be a net positive, Bobby Turner coming back. I just don't know if it's how effective it's going to be in the run game, just because obviously Anthony Lynn's there, and who's really coaching them at this point? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is a good point, right? 49ers are they got a good amount of young guys, right? Jeff Wilson Jr. probably is the only one in that room that has had extensive experience with Bobby Turner,
Right.
given that he is a 4 or 5 year vet now in this offense. But TDP, Jordan Mason, even Marlon Mack, right? All three of those guys kind of haven't necessarily been with the Bobby Turner experience. Maybe Tevin Coleman, maybe we see a roll out of him, but overall, you're right. New group, we'll see how that kind of goes. Interesting topic here. Saquon wants out of New York. Let's make the call. I haven't heard this. I haven't seen this. What is your thoughts on this?
I have two guys. Saquon is new. I have another one that I want to talk to you about. Can we go off
Let's
now?
do
Or should we
both.
save it?
Let's do it both right now, and then
Okay,
we'll go
so
into the
let's
final
talk.
topic.
Let's first talk about Saquon. So one of the things that I think um, is like a narrative when it comes to Kyle Shanahan is he could take any running back and they're gonna do well, right? And we've seen the success, right? We've seen guys like Raheem Mostert, Breida, obviously Elijah Mitchell, all be late round draft picks or undrafted free agents, uh, and come out and have a lot of success. However, one thing that we've also seen is the 49ers can't keep a healthy running back there, right? Because Kyle Shanahan, for some, is works these running backs like they're workhorses, right? He's before maybe he was giving more touches, but now he just goes with the guy he trusts, and they're running the ball 20 times a game and getting injured because usually people that are drafted later rounds or undrafted, they just don't have the physicality to be able to stay healthy with that kind of usage throughout a full NFL season. So
Yeah.
I think that the 49ers do need to start investing in every down type of running back, because what's the point of having guys that can have success if they're missing half the season because of injuries, right? So is Saquon Barkley that person? I don't know, because he's somebody that's very injury prone, right? He hasn't shown the
Correct.
ability to stay healthy, but I'm not opposed to the 49ers investing in uh, a higher running back or even an established running back. My fear, if they do it in the draft, is that whomever picks running backs for the 49ers in the first 3 rounds is terrible at it. I don't know who's scouting it, if it's Shanahan, if it's Lynch, or if it's a combination of all of that. If Bobby Turner is picking that running back, I'm all for it. But that's my fear, is that if they use a second round draft pick because that's all they have, or somehow get back into the first round for a running back, that somehow they'll mess it up and pick the wrong guy, because we've seen them year after year with their third round draft pick just whiff when it comes to running back position. But I do like them getting like a higher level running back, just because it seems like those guys can stay healthy longer with the type of abuse. I just don't know if Kyle Shanahan is the right guy to pick who that guy is.
Okay. I think that this is an intriguing case for sure. The thing with Saquon Barkley, it's essentially a 1 year rental deal. The 49ers, he's on his last year. This is his 5th year option. So he's going to demand a contract after this year. 49ers likely will not pay him. So you'd be trading probably what is a second or a third round pick for a 1 year rental, given that the 49ers likely won't pay a player like Saquon Barkley this year. I wanted to hear, though, what's your other option? Because you said you had two. What's your
Yeah,
other
so my
idea?
other option actually isn't running back related.
Go
So
for
I
it.
was on Niners Sickness podcast last night. And
Okay.
there's been these rumors that of like, or not rumors, but I think it's just the fan base. You've been hearing names like Gardner Minshew. You've been hearing names like Kirk Cousins, like making trades for these guys. Maybe not in season, but also in the off season. Um, but he mentioned, what if the 49ers put a package together that surrounds Trey Lance and maybe a guy like Brandon Ayuk, and call the Ravens and see if they're willing to part with Lamar Jackson, since it seems like they're at some kind of end when it comes to contract negotiations and stuff. If Lamar Jackson is available, which they still haven't given him that long-term money, should the 49ers make a call there and see if they could get him uh, for whatever reason?
Okay. That's I mean, that one's a little more bold, no? I would say. So highlight kind of a potential kind of move, maybe. What do you
So
think?
let's say it would be obviously Trey Lance. I think they would have to put in somebody like Brandon Ayuk and
And
maybe a guy
let's
and
just
maybe
clarify. This was at the end of next year, right? I mean,
yeah,
sorry,
this
at
is in
the
the
in the offseason, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
this won't be a mid-season trade. Obviously, the Ravens aren't going to give up their guy mid-season, right? For a guy that can't play. But let's just say Lamar Jackson ends up saying, "Look, you guys didn't feel like I was worth it. You guys made me play out my final year before you felt like I was worth the type of money that I'm asking for. I don't want to sign with you guys. I'll request a trade, right?" Um, so let's say the 49ers have to give up Trey, Brandon Ayuk, and let's say Drake Jackson. Those are the three pieces, plus, maybe some pick swaps, whatever it takes to be able to do that. You would look at the Ravens from it. They're getting a legit receiver, a legit defensive lineman, and their quarterback that they could develop, and probably some picks. And with the 49ers, they obviously get a seasoned vet that has the athletic ability to run like Lamar Jackson, like Kyle Shanahan likes, because he is Lamar Jackson. And obviously at that point you're gonna have to break the bank for him, but at least you're at least you got a quarterback that is viable and can perform.
Yeah. The one part about it, right? The 49ers, what we did, or I mean, what they did with the move with Trey Lance is they showed that they understand teams. It's extremely tougher when you're paying a quarterback a significant amount of money to win that Super Bowl. That's the problem, right? When you look at the last 5 Super Bowls, each Super Bowl has had a team who's had a quarterback on a rookie contract. Jared Goff with the Rams, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes twice, right, with the Chiefs, and then the year before it was Carson Wentz with the Eagles in 2017. Obviously, he didn't play in the game, but rookie contracts, and so they're in a way is a sustained formula. Create a good team around a quarterback, a young quarterback that is developing, and then make that push. The 49ers obviously went that route with Trey Lance, putting as much draft capital as they did into selecting him with the third overall pick. But then after that, it's tough right now. This is a really tough situation given that Lance is going to go 3 years without playing organized football and now is going to be expected to essentially take the 49ers to a Super Bowl within the next 2 years, given the timeline, because obviously the fifth year option then comes after that. So it is an interesting situation. It definitely goes away from the strategy that the 49ers have been implementing by trying to build around a rookie quarterback contract, especially with next year. But there is a salary cap increase. I think the move could work, but I can't say that it's not worth it because it's Lamar freaking Jackson, right? You
Right.
can't ever say that the move isn't worth it. But I don't know how realistic it is given the at least the outlook of this team so far.
So here's the thing where I think it could work, because you're right. Most teams want to have a quarterback on their rookie contract so that they can maximize other positions. But one thing the 49ers are a lot better than most of the teams in the NFL is their ability to get bona fide stars in the later rounds, right? So we just saw them do it again with a guy like Talanoa Hufanga, who was a fifth round draft pick and now is looking like an all pro caliber safety. They've done it with George Kittle, fifth round draft pick. They've done it with, Spencer Burford is looking like their right guard of the future, and he was, fifth round draft pick. So when you're able to maximize your draft picks the way that the 49ers are able to do, that makes it easier to be able to pay your top stars a certain level. And right, and when you're looking at who would be gone, like a Drake Jackson, a Brandon Ayuk,
It
these
would
are
be a
guys that
significant capital. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
but you're also those are guys that you're going to have to pay eventually, right? So at the end of the day,
Mm.
there are going to be some cuts, but maybe you let a guy like Jimmy Ward go because you saw what Gibson and Hufunga are able to do, and maybe you don't need a Jimmy Ward who and you can let him walk. You if you can develop a guy like Samuel Womack, maybe you sign a guy like Mosley, but you let Aziz walk, right? Because you're able to develop the linebacking core with guys that are cheaper on rookie deals and stuff like that. It is going to mean the 49ers need to get more creative, but I just feel like they're so good at that already that it's okay if you, and we've seen, like you mentioned, all of these guys on their rookie contracts, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee a victory, right? Because who won last year? It was Matthew Stafford, and he was getting paid. The year before, it was Tom Brady. He was getting paid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so yeah, you might be able to compete and make it to a Super Bowl, but at the end of the day, usually the better quarterback is winning. And oftentimes the better quarterback isn't the younger one. Obviously, for
That's fair.
Patrick Mahomes versus Jimmy Garoppolo, he was a better quarterback. That's why they ended up winning. But for the most part, having a superstar at quarterback, I think is
It's a
better
good
than
formula as
having,
well, obviously. Like, I
yeah,
mean, I think you can make the argument that Josh Allen is likely going to compete for a Super Bowl at some time in his career, and he's on a 6-year, $258 million contract.
exactly.
Like the two, like when you talk about it, yeah, I mean, there you can obviously make the exceptions. Like Brady has been on a pay cut; he's only made 25 a year compared to the absorbent salaries that have come up recently. Stafford was only on a $20 million cap hit last year. You can come up with excuses, but it is a good point though that superstar quarterbacks have been a significant part of a team's success when you talk about Super Bowls, right? Like Carson Wentz was playing at an MVP caliber year, had an MVP caliber year the year that he got injured, and the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. In 2018, both Jared Goff and Tom Brady were playing at a pretty high level in their respective systems. In 2019, Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. 2020 was Brady and Mahomes. And then in 2021, obviously Joe Burrow, the rookie quarterback, but who won? The Los Angeles Rams with Matthew Stafford at quarterback on that $20 million contract.
And also, I don't know if that's necessarily what the 49ers strategy is. I think they ended up doing it, but I don't know if that was really their strategy. Because if you look at what the 49ers have done under Kyle Shanahan, when they re-signed Jimmy to the type of contract they re-signed Jimmy to, he was one of the higher paid, if not the highest paid quarterback at that time. They were
Correct.
like, it's no secret that before they did the trade to go up in the draft to get a quarterback, they were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. So they were going
Right.
after an established quarterback that they were going to have to pay big money to, right? And after that, they were, it was Matt Stafford, who they knew they were going to have to re-up on contracts. So I don't know if that's accurate that their strategy was to build around a rookie quarterback. I think they just knew they needed a quarterback. And so they couldn't get one through free agency or through a trade. So they ended up trying to do it through the draft because of how weak the next year's quarterback class was, right? So
That could be
yeah,
fair. Yeah, I
I,
think that you can make that argument.
yeah, so I don't think they would be opposed to paying for that position, because how many years do you think Kyle Shanahan wants to be frustrated with his quarterback position? Because
You're right.
that's what he's frustrated with. Eventually, I think he just wants that solved, because the only reason why there's a doubt about Kyle Shanahan is because his quarterback play is
His
so
quarterback has really
inconsistent.
been average every year
Yeah,
that it's
and
been average or below average. You're
and it
right.
makes him look average. And I don't think he's average. And I think he's tired of the narrative that he's not, like, how much of the narrative is changing about him being an offensive genius. Like, I've talked about it.
And
So many people are
also,
talking about it.
yeah,
Go ahead.
and like one of my main criticisms about Kyle Shanahan is that while he has had average quarterback play his entire time, he's the one who chose average quarterback play, right? Everybody talks about how, oh wow, Kyle Shanahan passed on Mahomes, passed on
Watson.
Deshaun Watson in 2018 or 2017 because who did he want? Kirk Cousins, and then he ended up not getting Kirk Cousins because he traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. And
Right.
so if he had been patient, he likely ends up with Kirk Cousins. Instead, he got Garoppolo. And then after that, 2020, Tom Brady, you could have had him. At least there were rumors. You chose with Garoppolo. You stuck with Garoppolo. And then he finally, did something about it in 2021 after failing to get Deshaun Watson. Well, not fail. I mean, the cases happen, obviously.
Right.
And then Matthew Stafford, he failed to get Matthew Stafford. If people don't remember that, Kyle Shanahan had Matthew Stafford. Sean McVay swooped in. Sean McVay took Matthew Stafford. So, like, to me, yeah, he's at fault for the quarterback play as well. And so that's one of my criticisms. I don't blame Kyle Shanahan for execution, but you can blame Kyle Shanahan in a way, not blame, but you can at least point to Kyle Shanahan when you talk about how the quarterback situation has gone in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's absolutely miscalculations. He didn't have the urgency to fix that position, because I think he's always known that Jimmy was a limited quarterback, but he didn't have the urgency to fix that, even though every single offseason he flirted with another quarterback, right? They flirted with Tom Brady, like you mentioned. They flirted with Aaron Rodgers right before the draft. They flirted with Stafford, Watson. So I think that he would I think he would be okay and open to a vet like Lamar Jackson coming in. I know some people are saying they don't think that Kyle Shanahan and Lamar Jackson could mesh. I would totally disagree. I think that Lamar Jackson and Kyle Shanahan would be elite duo with how creative Kyle Shanahan could be. Lamar Jackson has a stronger arm than Jimmy Garoppolo, plus the athleticism of no, he's probably the best athlete of any quarterback in the league. So yeah, I think that would be ridiculous if they could make that move, and I think it might be. I don't know. We'll see what the Ravens do. Obviously, they're not gonna want to let go of Lamar. This would be obviously if only things got really bad in Baltimore, where he's like, I need a trade because you guys, I feel disrespected by you guys. You're muted right now, Rohan.
I think Kyle Shanahan and Lamar Jackson would be an electric duo, right? Because Kyle Shanahan can utilize Lamar Jackson in the exact same way that he'd utilize Trey Lance. I understand that there are different skill sets. Maybe Kyle Shanahan utilizes Lamar Jackson even more because he can hit the edge, right? And that might
Mm-hmm.
be a style of quarterback that he wants. I personally am not of the belief that Kyle Shanahan utilized Trey Lance as a running quarterback in that way. I don't think that's true. I think when you look at the true inflection points, the Houston game and then the beginning of the Seattle game, there's a certain way Shanahan used him. 6 designed runs a game, that's fine by me. If we're talking about it, and that was the case back in Houston. It seemed like it would have been a similar game plan here in Seattle before the injury, obviously. So we'll figure out the quarterback situation. Obviously, all the talk here is for fun, for speculation. This Lamar Jackson, who knows? He could just re-sign with the Baltimore Ravens as expected, with a
Or they
what of a
could
massive
franchise him.
deal. Yeah. Oh, and it's a topic for another day. But
Yeah.
when you talk about Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers, what are they known for? Not giving out that guaranteed money.
Right.
That is exactly what Lamar Jackson is looking for in his next deal. But that's a topic for another day. And this was a great discussion with you, Suneil. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for hopping on, and thank you all in the chat for coming up and supporting us too on this fine Friday afternoon. The 49ers do not play on Sunday this weekend. They play on Monday Night Football, Los Angeles Rams. That game's going to be a blast. It is at Levi Stadium, the first of 2 matchups between the two. But Suneil, as always, appreciate you for coming on. Appreciate the chat. You guys are great, and we will see you guys next time.